What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new Brawl Stars video. Today we're going to be talking about the most recent balance change patch, which is the biggest one we've ever seen in Brawl Stars history. Let's go ahead and get right into it. First and foremost, guys, we have Colt. Now, Colt is easily one of the most versatile brawlers in the game. He's got huge damage, a good reload speed, and a destructive super. His star power just added to his already insane versatility, and he's now getting a nerf because of it. Supercell appear to be moving Colt to a new type of subclass in the game, a mid-range DPS as opposed to being a long-range DPS like Piper, Brock, or Ricochet. His attack range is being nerfed from 10 to 9 tiles, and his star power movement buff has been reduced from 100 to 50. Overall, these changes are probably the right way to go. Colt is probably only rivaled by Crow and how dominant he can be in pretty much every game mode. Definitely understand the need to take him down a peg. Next up, guys, we've got Daryl. Despite his utter dominance in close-range encounters, Daryl felt a little bit underwhelming in high-trophy games, and I'm sure his win rate reflected that. While he's fantastic early on in his trophy climb, later on his overall usability is relatively low. As a result, he's gotten a sizable buff, from 4600 HP to 5000 HP, and each shell of his attack will now do 360 damage versus the 320 damage they did before. This change is probably going to hurt low-level play pretty significantly. Brawlers like Bull, Daryl, Shelly, and Primo are already pretty difficult for new players to deal with, so I can't imagine they'll do well against a souped-up version of the Barrel Bot himself. That said, it was definitely an essential change for high-trophy gameplay. Third, we've got Bo. Bo is in somewhat of an interesting position. He was originally buffed for far too much in relation to the rest of the cast of brawlers, and was shortly nerfed after that. But as the rest of the cast got buff after buff, Bo has started to lag behind the pack. He's now being elevated back to his original role as a ranged tank with a hefty 400 health buff, putting him at 3600 total. This change is awesome. Supercell looks like they're trying to farther distinguish between each brawler and make them into their own unique experience. Whereas before the star power update, many felt that brawlers like Brock, Ricochet, or Colt were too alike, and after the star power update, they have very different roles. This balance update just farther reinforces this line of thinking, and I definitely thoroughly appreciate these minor but overall impactful changes. Fourth, we've got Dynamite. Mike is in a bit of an awkward position. He can't be too strong or he'll end up being dominant in multiple game modes. But if he's not objectively able to output more damage or have more utility than Barley, then why would anyone ever want to play him? It's already harder to deal damage with him because of the countdown mechanic on his attack, so he needs to have more potential damage output than Barley or more utility than Barley. Well, the attack buff he just got, which puts him at 800 damage per stick of dynamite from 720 before, is definitely a step in the right direction. I still plan on making a video discussing how I think Dynamite needs to be fixed down the line, but I can definitely appreciate the effort that Supercell is putting into trying to make him a viable alternative to Barley again. Next up, El Primo's getting a small buff. It seems like the tankier brawlers are getting a lot of love in this balance update, and Primo is absolutely no exception. Supercell noted here that Bull does seem to be overshadowing Primo a bit, so they're buffing his HP slightly from 5800 to 6000 in an effort to even the playing field a bit. While I do like this change a lot for competitive gameplay, it does worry me a little bit that he's going to be faster than most other brawlers and have that much HP in game modes like Showdown. He's going to be ridiculously oppressive if he ends up with any power-ups at all, to the point that brawlers like Nita are going to have a really tough time winning matches against him. I'm just not sure how Supercell is going to avoid balancing brawlers separately based on game mode. Right now, it might be fine, but down the line, we're sure to see some issues from it. Coming in at number 6, we've got Jessie. Jessie is overall probably going to have a problem with balance in the future. She's a brawler that, when she's too overpowered compared to the rest of the cast of brawlers, will make some games feel completely unwinnable, much how Shelly used to be. There's very little gray area to work with when making balance changes to her, and in such a crazy balance patch, I can't imagine they wanted to give her too many buffs. As a result, she now has 3200 HP versus the 2800 she originally had, and her star power heals 800 health per attack versus the 600 it originally healed. Not a bad buff for sure, and I really can't imagine this is going to put her over the edge I just mentioned. Nita definitely needed a buff, and she definitely got it this time around. Her health got buffed from 3400 to 3800, solidifying her as a mid-range tank, Her star power heals 300 from 200 before, and her bear now has 550 movement speed versus the 500 it used to have, which, just so you guys know, is still 100 off from the slowest brawlers in the game. These changes aren't anything huge by themselves, but they will almost certainly be impactful enough to make her usage go up quite a bit. Next up, Poco got a pretty decent buff. His reload time was reduced from 2 seconds to 1.8 seconds, and his star power now heals 300 attack up from 200. Poco was definitely getting outclassed by Pam in almost every situation, and these changes might help remedy that a little bit, making it so both brawlers have their proper roles to fill. From what I've heard from high trophy players, Spike needed a slight buff to compete in high trophy matches, and he's getting one today. Just a slight reload time reduction from 2.2 seconds to 2 seconds. Only time will tell if this is a significant enough change or not, but I can't imagine his win rate's going to be too bad, considering how awesome his star power is and his overall utility in the game. On the other side of the coin, we have Bull, who's been pretty oppressively powerful recently. He definitely needed a small nerf at the very least in most people's opinions. His health was decreased from 5,400 to 5,200, and now his star power triggers at 40% instead of the 50% it triggered at previously. These changes probably don't sound too impactful if you don't know the history of Bull's balance changes, but he's definitely a brawler that needs to be delicately balanced. His star power has the potential to put him on top of most game modes if his survivability is too high, and that's exactly what Supercell is changing here. Ricochet definitely ate a pretty big nerf here. Losing 400 health on top of his already relatively low HP, he's now left with only 2,400 base HP. That said, with how Supercell is currently differentiating mid to long range brawlers, it definitely makes sense that such a high utility brawler is going to have a pretty low HP value. I think this puts Ricochet in a good place because his insane damage output coupled with his range should still be able to carry him. Now, Pam was borderline unstoppable in Smash and Grab, as many of you know. The wealth of changes here aim to fix that issue while keeping her relevant in other game modes as well. Her healing station heal was reduced from 360 per second to 320, the healing station's health was decreased from 3,600 to 2,800, Pam's health was increased from 4,000 to 4,200, the amount of bullets in each attack was reduced from 11 to 9, but don't fret, that doesn't actually mean it's an overall nerf because her reload speed was decreased from 1.6 seconds to 1.2 seconds. With all that said, guys, I feel like this changes a slight overall nerf to her sustainability in any given area, but a huge buff to her utility in any 1v1 situation. She can change direction sooner and shoot more often. She still does a ton of damage up close, and her super still heals a lot in combination with her star power. I really like these changes. Now, Mortis is in a very awkward position. He was incredibly hard to beat in Brawl Ball because of the self-passing mechanic many players figured out how to use effectively, and he had to be balanced with that in mind previously. Unfortunately, this left him in a really bad position in literally every other game mode. Well, this time around, he's a little more evened out. He's up to 3,200 HP from 2,800, 800 damage from 640, 700 speed from 650, and his attack range was nerfed from 3 tiles to 2 1/3 tiles. This is probably the most controversial balance change in the entire patch, with some players claiming that he's been balanced extremely well, and others claiming he's still absolute garbage. We're gonna just have to see how the meta settles, although my first impressions are definitely good. Now, Barley is a bit of a toss-up. His projectile speed was nerfed by 15% to make him a little bit less reliable on instant damage output, but his star power now heals 200 per attack instead of the 100 it did before, so it's kinda up to you as to whether or not this is a buff or a nerf overall. Personally, I feel like this is more of a nerf than a buff because Barley's star power isn't usually gonna be very impactful anyways. He doesn't have enough base health to take proper advantage of a mechanic like this, in my opinion. Crow definitely had to get a nerf here, guys. Like Colt, he was oppressive and versatile. His super jump speed was nerfed by a whopping 20%, which takes a little bit away from his otherwise completely unpredictable and heavy damage output. It's a necessary change though. As much as I don't want to admit it, a glass cannon brawler like Crow needs to give the opponent a split second to react to a super like his. Next up, Tara got a buff to her super, which is now up from 560 to 800. This is fantastic, although Tara is definitely a brawler that needs to be delicately balanced, a lot like Jessie and Bull. If she got too powerful, pre-made 3-person teams would be absolutely ridiculous with her, because coordinating supers with the piercing damage her attack gives means that any mistakes the enemy team makes could easily be the end of the game, especially in Smash and Grab and Brawl Ball. Last but not least, guys, we've got Shelly. Her super was already fantastic and a massive damage output, and her star power definitely needed a slight nerf. Her slow only activates for 2.5 seconds now, down from the 3 seconds before, and I definitely agree with this change. Just like Spike, Shelly's super with her star power is absolutely fantastic and very versatile, so having a slow on it is a very, very ridiculous thing to deal with when you're on the receiving end of it, and I think that around 2.5 seconds is probably the exact right time for it to be at. And yeah, guys, that's going to be about it for this one. Thank you so very much for watching this all the way to the end. I very much appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. If you have any strong opinions on this balance change, on all of these balance changes, because there were so many of them, go ahead and drop them down in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching, and until the next one, guys, peace. By the way, if you could just run down to the comments and let me know what you think of this format, I'd very much appreciate it. This is the first sort of update video I've made where I've edited it a lot, and I sort of would appreciate some input, so thank you guys in advance.